You already know. Anyways, welcome back. It's so exciting to have you join us yet again. And this time, you will be getting some insight, some laughter, I'm sure, some sarcasm, and just a lot of really, really good information from a very good friend of mine, someone who is one of the best gamers that I know. If you are looking for a good game night, his house is where you want to be. Someone who has continued to show me what it looks like to be a good parent. And yeah, one of the best dads I know. PJ, Mac, should I say what, Senior? Senior!
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for accepting the invitation.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You didn't really have much of a choice.
Not at all, but I'm here, so
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah.
Man, it's like quicksand. How do y'all do this?
Yeah, it's just, you know.
Figure it out. I'll get there.
You just gotta
Sink
let
into
it.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
good grief. All right, well, we're here now.
Yeah, we are.
So thanks for having me. This is nice. I like what we're doing here. This is good stuff.
Yeah, that's good. What do you like about what we're doing here?
It's kind of an eye opener. It's also a good place to reflect on things. You know what I mean? Like you see the different interviews and people talking about things they've gone through and just growth that they've had. And I think that an opportunity to actually talk about it yourself lets you recognize the growth you've had. You know, we might hear people say things like, "Oh, you've come a long way," but you don't really see it. And when
Right.
you start to really like kind of cycle through it on your own, it makes it more apparent, and it doesn't feel like just somebody saying it to say it. You're acknowledging yourself, and that's good.
Yeah. On top of all of those other things, PJ is also an amazing sound person. So he's been doing the sound for all of the interviews, except for this one. This one,
Yeah,
he has a
this-
protege.
yeah.
Howard T stepped in. So he's been here to kind of be a part of every single conversation thus far. And you kind of said something about growth and being able to see your own growth. What were you hearing as you were listening to the conversations?
It's not just you, because when you're in those holes, you always think like I'm the only one going through this, and then when you see that somebody younger going through it and getting that help sooner, it's not a journey that has a specific time, and like just seeing these people talk about these things and go through these things is kind of interesting to see where it started and how they managed it and when they started to manage it. It's a good thing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. What is your journey of like resilience looked like? Let's start from when you were a kid.
It's been a turbulent ride, to say the least. I mean, I've always been kind of a quieter state of myself person, and then when I'm comfortable with who I'm comfortable with, I don't shut the hell up, as you may know. Don't agree, just kind of let it slide off. But no, when I was growing up, it was always a lot of the typical, inner city black family thing. Kids are told what to do, you do it. There's no democracy there. It's a dictatorship. If you are not obeying those rules, you're doing something wrong. If you have a difference of opinion, you don't have an opinion. So a lot of the things that I've seen and dealt with growing up were just things meant to keep you in a place. You take what you get, and then outside of that are the dangers. I grew up around gangs, lost friends at early ages, as early as 10, and there was a lot of things that I was taught to just kind of push through, as we say, and I think I really hate that phrase, is push through, because we don't realize until it's piled up that we didn't push through, we just packed it away. And a lot of my youth was just packing things away, finding things to distract, finding things to just stay in a place where I felt safe. And as I got older, that didn't work. And it got to a point where adulthood caught up to me. This year has been probably one of the hardest years of my life. Like we did the whole history repeats itself thing. At 16 to 20, I was homeless, bouncing place to place, living on the streets, and it was rough. That was the hardest time of my youth. And thinking that, okay, I'll never go back to that place, I find that I went to a different place. I went to a place where all that caught up to me, because I'm so used to moving and pushing through. I was running from and packing away. And at a point, I had to be forced in a situation where I had to sit down and really look at everything. And it was too much. It was finally to a point where it was just too much to handle. So I took time off, learned about a lot of things that I thought that I was dealing with that I really wasn't. Things were just happening to and around me. For example, you know, we lost Jay earlier this year, and then right after Jay's funeral, I get word that another friend is missing, and a week later, they're found in a rat-infested basement in an apartment in Detroit with two of his friends. And it's like all that stuff coming in at once, you know, family issues and my health issues. It was too much, and I broke. And at that point, I realized that the term resilience for me didn't look like the textbook definition, you know, which is just being able to bounce back and be elastic, because I wasn't bouncing back. I was drowning in it. And what I learned from all this is that for me, that term is more, I'd say it's like road rash, right? You know, if you fall on and scrape your knee on the gravel, you can see the lines in the skin and the scars on the surface and the bits of gravel stuck in there, but it goes deeper. You know, there's scrapes, there's cuts, and there's slices, and there's stabs. And for me, resilience is knowing which ones you're dealing with, which ones are buried deep that you need help with, that you can't fix. I can just let my skin heal itself on the surface, but deep down my heart and mind were not doing the job. They were just sliced up, and I couldn't fix them on my own. So when I started to take a look at and take stock of what was going on in my life and in my head, it was trying to figure out what I wasn't dealing with, that I was just packing away, what I was pushing through, if you will, and accepting that I needed help, and then seeking it out. So
What was that process where you finally chose to say, I need help? Because those words are like, I need help.
Scary.
It could be worse than, I don't know,
Yeah,
anything else. Because it's like you're saying, what I've lived so far, like, especially when you've gone through so much, it's like, especially when you push through so much, it's like, wait, when you say it, it becomes real.
Exactly.
You know? So, like, what was that process like for you?
It was three things for me. And I didn't really think about what that was until recently. But it wasn't just saying, hey, I need help. It was specifically three words that stuck key to me. It was acknowledgement, acceptance, and willingness. And those three things were key in actually going through the steps in the process of doing what I needed to do for me. Because first I have to acknowledge that something's wrong in order to accept that I need help, and then be willing to make those changes. And, you know, if I add another to that, it's desire. Like, I want it to be better than I was. And I give that advice to people, you know, be better than you were tomorrow, than you were today, you know, things like that. But it's not reflecting on my own shit. It was just, you'll be okay, you can get through this. And I'd advise people through things, but in my own head, it's like, I helped them, that's good, I can do something else, but I wasn't helping me. And once I finally said, okay, something's not right, I know that I'm at a point where I can't keep doing this. And I started to see how it was affecting my wife and my kids, and just, you know, my work ethic and things like that. It was taking a toll that I couldn't fix. And people would ask me, like, what can we do to help you? And all I could say is, I don't know, because I didn't know. I wasn't willing to accept that I knew what I needed. I needed somebody else's help, but I just didn't want to take that on. And once I did, and I was willing to do it, it was just, you know, talking to the right people. Luckily, I'm a veteran, and the VA gave me an abundance of resources. And this was where I found out the things that I was actually dealing with. Before, you know, I was always angry. And as much as I smiled and laughed, inside I felt rageful. I was angry. I was cynical even. And I had spoken to my doctor at the VA, and they said, okay, well, it sounds like you're dealing with depression. And for me, and for most families of color, that's not a thing, you know. Mom, I'm depressed, you better depress them damn dishes, and that's it. Like, you're not getting help, you're not getting fixed, if you will. And then I was going through the process of talking to them, and I got put in a program called PPH, and I was in there with 5 other veterans who were all dealing with similar things and similar situations, and we were all a little reluctant to talk to each other about it because it's a bunch of strangers. And as we started to open up more, it was kind of like that, we're accepting it. Like, it's not just us. It's not shameful. It's not, you're not broken, because that's a lot of things that were in my head. I'm broken. I should be ashamed. I'm a man. I'm supposed to push through. I'm supposed to be stronger. And it's bullshit. I'm human and I have a human life and human emotions and I should be able to feel and experience them all. But we're taught not to do that as men. We're taught to be strong and be the rock. But sometimes that rock gets ground down in the sand. And sometimes that sand is beautiful to somebody. You have to just know when to formulate a time and place to be both of them. You know what I mean? I can be a rock for my wife and kids, but I could also be that pliable sand and be a little soft at times. And once I was able to take that on and realize that all these things that I'm feeling are a part of me, taking on the help and finding the right avenues was challenging and it was scary, but it was a thing that I needed to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, because I remember when I met you, I was like,
Yeah.
you're, it's an awesome person is what I said. No,
That
I'm
is
just
not
kidding.
what you said at all. Your exact words were, when I first met
knew you
you,
were gonna-
you
I
were an
knew you were
asshole.
gonna-
But, no, you said, I thought you were an asshole. And as it turns out, I was right. But you're not a malicious asshole.
For sure.
Which I will 100% accept. That is, yeah.
For sure.
I will.
And I don't think you're an asshole anymore.
No, I'm still an asshole.
No, I think for me, when I first met you, like you have, like you love, like it's just kind of like that's who you are, and you were also like very guarded at the same time. Like you would crack jokes, you did your little freestyle, he a little rapper.
Hey, well, we're gonna
Back
put the
in the
lobe in front
day,
of that.
find
Like,
his clips. No, I'm kidding.
oh God.
But yeah, you had like this wall that was just kind of like,
Yeah.
and so I'm really proud of you for taking the step to like take care of yourself, because in you taking care of yourself, like you said, it like directly makes a difference. And it's like, even if it didn't directly make a difference to anyone else except for your own experience, it's still worth it. Even if no one else saw it and you woke up in the morning and, you had more peace or you had more whatever the case may be, like you were okay with yourself, then it's still worth it.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure to say that too, because I think sometimes we do things for other people and to be better for others. And it's important to be better for yourself too.
Yeah, 100%. It reminds me of something I told my son. He asked me one day, he said, Dad, am I the first person on your list? And I said, no. And he said, okay, so is it Mom? Talking about my wife. He's from a previous. And I said, no. And he goes, well, is it Kai or Mallory, my daughters? And I said, no, the first person on my list is me.
Right.
And he went home and told his aunt. She told him that I was a selfish asshole. And I was like, that's fair. I can see where you would think that.
Yeah.
And then I asked him, I said, okay, if you think about it this way, tell me if you feel the same way she does. How can I make sure you're okay if I'm not? How can I make sure that you have what you need if I'm broken, if I can't provide, if I can't do the things that I should be able to do as a father, a husband, a man, a human being? If I'm mentally in the dumps and I cannot function properly or to my fullest capacity, how can I make sure that you're okay and keep you safe? If I died tomorrow, how am I then providing for you and protecting you? And he said, okay, well, that makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, so the first person I have to take care of is me. And we've been taught that that's selfish. And that's actually not selfish, because if I can't give my 100% to my daughters, to my son, to my wife, to those that need me, what am I doing? I am running myself into the ground to keep people afloat on a raft for a moment. And then once I drown, they're eventually going to drown too. And I cannot make sure that someone is okay if I'm not, and I wasn't okay. And understanding that I wasn't okay, understanding that I wasn't broken, but I was hurting. I was lost. I was damaged at best. At worst, I was confused, was the step that said, okay, this has to be, something's got to give. You know what I mean? I'm a good husband. I'm a good father, but I could be great if I would fix my mentality.
Was there an event that made you, or like a moment where you were like, I need to change?
Well, when we were doing the service for Jay, that was I left that, like right after I didn't go to the repass, I left and I ended up in the hospital. And they said it was, my joints were locking up. I couldn't turn my head. I was getting dizzy, and they were like, it's all due to stress. And I got home, and it got to a point where I was talking to my wife about something, And she said, you were talking about, or she said, no, I saw you get in this mood again where you talk about how you're unhappy, and I just figured, oh well, here we go with this shit again. And it was at that point that I was like, wait a minute. So you've heard me down in the dumps like this and complaining about something or talking about something or venting something, and to you it just seemed like I was just being a grumpy bastard, and you kind of just brushed it off. So at first I felt like, okay, you're not really seeing me then. You're not seeing something that's going on. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm not showing her that something's wrong. I'm showing her the symptoms of whatever is bothering me, whatever's going on inside of me that I can't figure out. I'm taking it out on her, to her. And she doesn't deserve that. And she said, I'm not taking it. I'm just going to let you get this out of your system. But when it wouldn't happen, she knew the signs but didn't know the cause, because I hadn't shown her anything more than the result of my brokenness or my seemingly misaligned thought processes or whatever the case is. And it was when she said that, and I took the step back to be like, it's not that she doesn't see me. This is just what I'm showing her. I wanted to show her better. It's very difficult to, as a man, admit anything emotional to anyone. And one of the things she asked me was, why don't you open up to me? And that was another thing that I was like, damn, I don't know. And digging through therapy, and this is one of the stigmas that I really hate when I hear people say, daddy issues and mommy issues. They're just issues. They happen to come from, a father or mother, but people don't realize the severity of those issues and why that is such a condescending thing to say to someone. Because if you have issues that stem from your mother and father, that means you were raised, and instead of being protected by people or taught to be protected and be loved and be something amazing in yourself, you were taught that you weren't good enough or weren't worth it by the people who were supposed to be your first line of defense. So if you get that downgrade or that downplaying on who you are from your first line of defense, what makes the world think that you're going to go out and trust anyone else? If the first person to love me made me feel like garbage, then the next woman that steps into my life will not be trusted. If I can't trust the woman that birthed me, how can I trust the woman that can choose to walk away from me, right? And I had that guard up, like you said. It was because of those things. But when I would hear her say certain things, like, why don't you open up? Well, then I realized, if my first broken trust in women was my mother, my first beat downs were from my father, not some dude on the streets in a street fight, the man that's supposed to teach me how to defend myself, then I'm going to take beatings from everywhere because I learned to take them here, and that's it. And it was seeing that it was affecting my wife and the way she interacted with me, the way I treated her, the way my daughters and my son would see us. Like it was too much. It was a generational curse, so to speak. I didn't want to repeat. We raise our kids based on our traumas when we should be raising them based on our aspirations, and it needed to be better.
I was going to ask you, like, did that directly impact the choices that you made as a parent? And you kind of answered that question. It's so interesting seeing you parent because, no, like in the best possible way. I think my sister has said that to me too. Like, I love, like, just the way that you parent. You're just so, like, intentional about the type of.
There's certain things that work, there's certain things that don't. And one of the things that I know that parents do is they raise for a future. You're going to be this, you're going to have this. They want to predict what their kids will be. My parents did that a lot, and I hated it. They don't raise for a moment. They don't raise for an experience. They don't raise for gaining knowledge. They raise for a possible future that they won't even know exists. And they're basing that on a past that no longer exists. So when I raise my kids and when I teach my daughters things or I interact with them, I don't raise them based on this is what I was doing at your age, because so what? That was 19 whatever. That was last century, literally. You know what I mean? When I'm raising my daughters and I'm raising my son and I'm giving them advice and I'm interacting with them, I want to know what they're feeling in that moment, because the excuse me, the thought process that I'm going to teach you how life is because I'm an adult and I know is wrong. You're going to teach me how your life is right now because you live in a space in a moment that I don't have any experience with. I am not a teenage girl or a teenage boy in 2023 living in the space with other teenagers. So my experience as a grown ass man in 2023 is not going to be the same as yours. So I just let them be. If you make a mess, it's a mess. I can clean it up. There's nothing a child will do that is so just nefarious and dastardly in my house that I gotta beat them, I gotta scream at them, I gotta make them feel less than. So just experience that moment, and we'll talk about why it was messed up or why it was great afterwards, and we just have fun with it.
How did you process your moments where you were, beat down, or you were, like what gave you that? I don't even know if it would be desire, but what made you choose to say, like, I'm going to do something different, Because as a child and as children and as people, we're given choices, So every single action that we take kind of leads us closer to something or further away from where we want to be. So, like, when you were being beat down, what was the process that allowed you to make that choice, like, I'm going to do something different, instead of I'm going to continue to perpetuate the same thing that was given to me?
It hurt, first off. Like, I mean, punches don't feel good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, like, seriously, that was the first thing. It was like, this shit hurts. I don't want to do this. Like, let's do something else. But the main thing was that it's how I looked at my parents. I don't want my kids to look at me like that. I knew that if I walked in the house and my dad said certain words, I'll deal with you later. I'll deal with you when you get home, I was in trouble. I'll see you when you get home, I was okay. There was psychological things in there. And to go through my whole school day afraid of when I get home, I didn't like that. That's what I was thinking of, so I was holding on to. And it was fear. I processed everything through a lens of fear and survival. I need to make sure that whatever happens when I get there, I can just be all right tomorrow. Hopefully I don't get bruised too bad, things like that. And I don't want my kids to look at me like that. The other day, Mallory came in the kitchen, it's my 2-year-old, and I have Apple stickers.
My goddaughter.
Yeah, her goddaughter. I had these Apple stickers on my iPad, and she's been trying to pluck them off for the longest. I told her, don't touch them. Like, leave them alone. Just, it's my sticker collection, whatever, not important. And I'm cooking dinner, and she walks into the kitchen, and she goes, Daddy, look, and she's pointing to her shirt, and I look down, and she got all my stickers all over her shirt. And she is just beaming ear to ear. And I was pissed, because I'm like, I told you not to mess with my stuff, and you just ripped all my stickers off. And I looked at her just straight-faced, and I watched her smile disappear. I watched her look up at me, and she went from this just bright, beautiful, beaming, just happy little girl, and she just shrank down into herself and just starts fidgeting. And I was like, no, ain't no way in hell. Like, I can't watch my daughter fearfully look at me and be the reason that she's doing that. No. So I crouched down and I gave her a hug and I told her, you know what? You look beautiful. And she beamed again and she ran off and I was like, touch my goddamn stickers again. I was mad still, but for her, like, it was like, I'm like, they're just stickers. I can get these any day of the week again. You know what I mean? It wasn't that big of a deal. There's not a thing that a kid's gonna do that's gonna be that bad that I gotta swing or yell. So I was like, and seeing that moment was like, damn, younger me doing that, I would have got my ass beat right on the spot for doing something I shouldn't have done. Or I was thinking of it like, I would have never touched them because once you told once, that's it. But that shouldn't be the thing. I can't raise my kids and be like, hey, you know what? Go out in the world and seize the day and do you and learn and don't take nobody's crap if I'm beating them into submission at home. And growing up and getting beaten into submission at home and told I'm supposed to take this and do this and this is the way it's got to be. If I have anything to say back, are you challenging me? No, I'm not. But I should have been able to. So I tell my daughters, hey, and my son, you can say anything you want to me. You can feel whatever you feel. Just say it with respect. I will accept it. I will hear it. I will process it. I will acknowledge it if it's my mistake. Like, my situation with Junior. I was out of his life for 6 years, military, court battles, him being hidden from me. And when he finally came back, he told me flat out, I said, sit down and tell me how you feel. And he's like, Dad, I love you. I can never hate you. Dad, I love you. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Like, tell me how you honestly feel, because I know you feel some kind of way. And he broke down, and it's the first time I saw my son wear the effects of me not being around for that long. And he looked me in my face, tears streaming, and he said, I hate you. I hate you so much. And it crushed me because I knew it, but to hear him say that to me, now in my household, I would have never been able to have that conversation. I hate you, teeth knocked out. You know what I mean? But I know that I'm the reason for this anger in you. So I apologized to him. I'm sorry. You know, I own that. This was my mistake. My ignorance put you in this position, and I apologize for it, and I'll take that on. You have every right to feel like that, and I'll do what I can to make you feel like you love me again. And we've been working at it since then. We had our ups and downs, and we've been working, and things have been great lately. And it's just one of those things where, like, I was never apologized to as a kid. That's not something that, and I don't know any parents from, you know, my generation who apologized to their kids when they were wrong. What we got was, if we got our ass whooped, it was, well, that's for next time. So we're like, oh, freebie, I'm about to go screw up outside right now. Oh, I'm about to get away with it. And then we got another one. And it was like, what happened to that freebie that I banked? Like, no, nothing? Okay. Or it would be psychological stuff. I'll deal with you later. And then we got 2 days where nothing's happening. And now I'm in fear for 2 straight days thinking, like, when is it going to happen? And then right when my guard is down, beating out of nowhere. And it's like, what the hell, man? Like, and knowing how that felt to me, there was no way in hell I was going to let any of my kids grow up fearing me when the world outside is far more dangerous than I could ever be to them.
How do you discipline your children?
Well, I lock my daughter in a closet and I play scary music. No,
He's joking.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah, definitely joking. That is not what I do. I'm not gonna say like I never raise my voice, because sometimes I'll get frustrated. I'll be like, you know, would you, God, man, I'm there. But I typically just have a conversation. My kids are at a point to, even Mallory, just a stern voice, and she's like, oh, I'm good. But she's never gotten a spanking or a whooping, as we call them, you know.
Yeah.
Kai is just, she's been raised enough, you know, in a way that she can talk to me about things and she's comfortable. So we'll have conversations. What I would do with the whole family is we would sit down and we have what we call feelings talks, where we sit down and we just say, hey, look, this is a thing that you did that I don't like, and I need you to work on this. But here's a thing I feel like I should work on too. So I'm not just telling you where you're wrong or where you screwed up. I want to tell you where I feel like you should improve, but also where I can improve too that may help that, you know. And then I ask my kids, what is something you want me to change or do different? What is something that you would like to see me do more of as a father or less of as a father? And if it's something like, I don't want to do the dishes, well, tough titty, you better get in there and wash some dishes. But
Tough titty
if it's
is
like,
crazy.
yeah, it's crazy, right? No, but like, if it's like, you know, I want you to be a little more patient with me with things, fair. That's fair, because my impatience means I'm not taking a step back to regulate my emotions as an adult to try to teach you how to regulate yours. So that's fair. Okay, I'll be a little more patient. I'll try. And when it's stuff they get in trouble with, we have that conversation. Why do you think I'm disappointed? Do you think you're in trouble? What is the worst thing you think is going to happen? Okay, well, you're gonna get mad and you're gonna yell. Okay, so I'm not yelling right now. So now what's the worst thing you think is going to happen? Well, you're going to take some stuff away. Okay, and why do you think I'm taking things away? Well, because I did this. So I want her to understand why she messed up, where she messed up, and why the punishment is happening. And then her punishments are very simple.
Yeah.
You got to live a day in the life of a 90s kid. You about to hang with dad all day. We watching one show on the TV that you probably don't like, and we hanging out. And then she realizes, like, this isn't even a punishment. It's just us spending quality time together with no devices. And in those, we have conversations, and we just enjoy each other's company. And she typically doesn't repeat the same mistakes. It works. I don't have to hit her. I don't have to scream at her. I don't have to send her to a room and lock her away like a prisoner. I just interact with her.
Yeah.
And help her understand through conversation. And it's communication is the best way to do anything.
For sure. That's something that I always believe too, like, especially growing up and not, you know, my parents not having the tools to be able to communicate and express, like, you know, emotional things, not because they didn't want to, but just because they didn't have those tools. It was difficult for me to understand why I was disciplined at times. It's like, okay, I'm in trouble, but I don't even understand what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
And so when it came to having conversations with my siblings, I always wanted, um, that's our producer.
Sound guy's gonna be pissed.
For sure. We're keeping that in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember just, yeah, I wanted, when it came to conversations with my siblings, I wanted them to understand,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because understanding gave me power. It gave me the ability to
Right.
change. It gave me the ability to understand why it was necessary to change. I think when it comes to disciplining children, and I'm not a parent yet, you know,
I like the yet.
yeah, like I've, you know, given what I could, but I haven't had
Mm-hmm.
any children of my own. And so, yeah, one of the things that I think is like really crucial is just having a conversation where someone fully
Mm-hmm.
understands. And it's also important to have consequences, because there are
Absolutely.
consequences in life. And I think that if there isn't discipline, and discipline doesn't mean like physical, you know,
Exactly.
whatever. It can be for certain people, whatever, but for me, it doesn't, you know, look like that. And discipline is necessary, because what the last thing that I want is for someone that I'm speaking to, that I'm trying to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go out in the world and not understand that there are consequences for their
Exactly.
actions.
Exactly.
And like, we're humans. If they knew better, they wouldn't do it, you know?
Exactly.
So yeah, I also think that there's that. One of the things that stood out throughout like what you were talking about earlier is, you were like, the definitions of, you know, what it looks like to be a man,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in your process of learning what resilience looks like to you, learning how you want to discipline your children, or just in general
Mm-hmm.
expressing your emotions, what are the things that you've had to unlearn? What are the things that you've had to add? And what are the things that you've had to come to terms with when it comes to your, you know, process of manhood and resiliency?
Um. Hmm. I had to unlearn everything essentially, and what I mean by that is that we are taught what manhood and masculinity is from very young ages. You know, we are shielded from things that are considered unmanly and non-masculine from very young ages. Fathers don't want their kids playing with Barbies. They don't want their sons doing anything with anything pink, stuff like that. And those things typically are what push, you know, your sons into those that they want to know why. What's so bad about this, and they'll dig into that stuff later. So I had to unlearn that masculinity wasn't someone else's definition. It's mine. You know what I mean? I had to learn that
What's
being
your definition of masculinity?
comfort, being comfortable with who you are, what you can do, and what you're willing to do and accept. Now, you can be a very masculine man and have very soft hands, or like pink, or whatever the case is, but your masculinity comes in your confidence. It is in your assertiveness and who you are as an individual. That to me is more of what it means to be, I wouldn't even say to be a man, but to be a proper human. Because man or woman, that's fine, it's whatever, you know what I mean? But just the overall encompassing thing, we take man as the, you're supposed to lead, you're supposed to be in control, you're supposed to be in charge. But not everyone's doing that. If all men were leaders, then who would be followers? Just women? If all men were in control, then where's the divvy up of things? You know what I mean? It's an imbalance that doesn't exist. Sometimes you need to know when to be the second in command, because you have to learn from someone. But if you're not willing to learn because you think as a man you know it all and you're already a man, then you're wrong. But one of the things I really had to unlearn, and I tell this to Junior all the time, if you have a conversation with someone and you have to say, I'm a grown ass man, you are not a grown ass man. A grown man should never have to tell someone that he is a grown man. They should recognize that through his actions, how he carries himself, and his respectability, his dependability, his strength of character. They should see that in you when you walk in a room. But if you have to stop and say, I'm a grown man, that person that you're talking to already doesn't see you as such. And you aren't as such because you have to remind and reiterate and say it and state it. That's not a thing you have to say. You would never have to walk into a room and say, I'm a grown woman in here. And people are, oh shit, Lo's a grown woman. I forgot. No, you would just walk in a room and they would know here's a woman with character. So if you're a man of character or stature or anything like that, it is present in your presence. So knowing that, that had to go. I don't use that in the conversation with people anymore. It's just, it's out of my vocabulary. I don't need that. What I had to learn was that everything that I feel, everything that I go through are part of what make me the individual that I am and part of what define me as the person that people see me as. So we don't cry in public. I've seen my father cry once when his brother was in the hospital, and it was briefly as he went in the room and closed the door. Other than that, I've never seen my father cry. That was wrong, because then when I'm feeling like I should cry, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to do that in front of my wife. I'll look weak. And we have to, as men, we have to unlearn and learn that emotions aren't weaknesses. Emotions are part of being a human. So we got to unlearn that this makes you soft if you're this in your feelings bullshit. We have to unlearn that it is okay to have these feelings because you have to deal with them. I had to unlearn that having feelings that don't display aggression and strength are okay. And then I had to learn how to deal with the ones I was never allowed to show or use. And not by family, but just by society as a whole. If I cry outside on the curb, not too many people are going to ask me what's wrong or check on me. You cry outside on the curb, a lot of people are going to be like, whoa, my God. Even I'd stop crying and be like, are you okay? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we have to learn how to accept that we have emotions and that they need to be tended to as well. It's just a different way of tending to them, you know what I mean?
Do you think emotions are necessary and having emotional intelligence is necessary?
Absolutely.
Okay, why do you think having emotional intelligence and being aware of your emotions is necessary in the process of, the process of resilience, like the process of life? Like, why is that necessary?
Well, if you don't know what you're feeling, how do you know what to deal with? How do you know how to face it? How do you know how to process it? If I know that any other feeling other than anger and anything not fueled by testosterone is considered weak, and that's what I was taught, then everything that I feel is being channeled into one thing. So, for example, for little boys, we are taught if we're getting bullied in school, how to fight. We are taught if we are getting in a situation where we're sad or we're stressed, we go play a sport. We do things that let us beat our chest and that let us beat someone else. We do things that make us feel like winners. We do things that with aggression and with dominance. But we don't do things that say, hey, when you're sad, cry it out. Let that leave your system. Sit down and write about what you're feeling. Think about why you're upset. Step back. Think about the things you thought before then or felt before then and process that. If we don't know how to process sadness and grief, that's when we get to the point where now we're sad because our wife did something or said something wrong, and now we're hitting her because we were taught when you're sad, channel it through aggression. When you're alone, channel it through aggression. Get on a team, you know what I mean? So if you don't know what these feelings are and how to process and how to utilize them and what they mean for you as a person in your development, you'll never be whole.
Does processing look different for men versus women? And
it does.
Okay, so tell me, because one of the things that I've learned in being in a relationship is that it's not that sometimes, like, as a woman, I used to think that if you're not expressing yourself, and this is my mistake, if you're not expressing yourself the way that I think it looks like to express yourself, then you're not aware of your emotions. And that was something that, like, I had to learn. It was like, oh no, like, this is an emotion. And we do have times where we have similar ways where we express things, like crying or, things like that, in certain scenarios. And I'm in this process where I'm just discovering and learning so much about the difference there is and, like, how men versus women are. And it's not even like a difference in our experiences, but just in how we process and what we do. So I kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's missing. And I think that especially when you're in a relationship, oftentimes you can look for what you think this expectation. I always say expectations will set you up for some sort of disappointment,
100%
versus
failure.
communication will give you the ability to build a bridge between you and that person. You know,
100%.
so it's like what would be a good thing for us? Not even a good thing. What is something that we can learn as women about how men process that would directly benefit our male, you know, and female interactions? It doesn't have to be even in a romantic, but just in general. How do you, you know that your person is opening up? Like, how do you identify, you know, those things? And I know it's different for different people.
Right,
but
right.
Like, what is it from a male perspective, or, you know, a man's point of view? Like, what would you say is like
In my personal experience, it's that not everyone's priority is your priority. Right? This is a conversation Felicia and I had. We went through couples counseling when dealing with all this to kind of rebuild what was lost through all the stuff I was going through. And one of the sessions, she said, I feel like when things get bad, you don't care. And I said, well, I do care. Why do you think I don't care? And she's like, well, because I'm stressing out and I'm freaking out over it, and you're just like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. We'll sort it out.
For sure. It's
And
like, you do not hear me. I just said the house is on fire.
now,
And you're like, okay, let's
And-
get the water.
exactly. And in that situation is her house is on fire. I'm in this house. I'm not thinking about the fire. I'm thinking about escaping it. But she's focused on the fact that there's a fire. Right? You're thinking about the walls burning down. I'm thinking about how do we get outside these walls. So because this is a large scale problem to you, I need to think about how to keep you calm and get you out of it.
But I think that's where men go wrong sometimes. And I'm not going to say all men, but I think that's where from the other side, right? It's like, I can see that the house is burning down. I'm expressing that the house is burning down. And at the same time, I'm also thinking of solutions on how we can escape.
But how you're presenting that solution is by panicking about the fire.
But it looks like panic to you when it's the internal expression. It's the external expression of what you're feeling internally.
And we could be feeling the same exact thing, right?
Yeah.
But the difference is, while you're expressing it in a frantic way, I may be frantically filing through how we're going to deal with the situation and thinking the same things.
So you're panicking too.
But if I'm panicking outwardly, how are you going to calm down? How are you going to feel secure?
I think that that's where the opportunity is missed. It's not in the how are you going to calm down? How are you going to do this, right? It's like, I think acknowledgement, like you said in the beginning of all of this, goes a long way. Acknowledging someone's experience oftentimes dismantles the experience itself.
Now, that is the same thing for women and men. That's where, like you said, the opportunity is missed. I'm expected to acknowledge your experience so that you can feel like, okay, I'm heard. Then acknowledge that I experience it differently as well, right? The thing is that men don't typically react big in situations. We react internally because we are the ones burdened with the protect, provide, solve. So we have to think in steps of logic. This is the problem. Where are the steps to fix it, right? Now, we could be inside like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. But outwardly, I cannot let you feel like this is a spiral that's going out of control, because now I know it's going to affect you more. Because you're already stressing out. I can see it. You're coming to me with the stress. I'm stressed too.
I think in certain situations that you acknowledging, it's not that you have to be like, I am. It's that I'm panicked too. Here's what we're going to do. And I think that's why communication and language is so it's not that I need to see the internal panic, the internal struggle. It's that I just need you to acknowledge it's there.
And I think that's the other part of it too. It's yes, there's the acknowledgement, but sometimes we can acknowledge and y'all still like, well, what?
For sure.
It's the thing that happens in that is the reassurance. Men typically process internally and we'll run through a whole conversation in our head and be like, okay, I got it. Now you feel like you weren't heard or you didn't get to have any input because when you told me about this fire, I just came up with an answer. We didn't work together. But in my head, I knew what you were going to say. I knew how you were going to react based on our history together, based on the things. And if I say, well, if I say this, you were going to do this, right? Yeah, that's right. But you didn't get to say it, right? So it's the acknowledgement, it's the partnership, and it's the reassurance. You need to feel, and not you specifically, but like from my experience, women need to feel that, okay, I came to you, you heard me, and now you can handle it. Okay, now I got it out of my chest. I was able to say it.
For sure.
You were able to hear it. I know you heard it, and
I
now
know you
you're moving
heard
forward.
it.
Exactly, and that's the
Because
thing.
if you
Y'all
didn't
want to be
hear it,
heard.
now we're stuck at this point. And I think that when it comes to conversations, because conversations itself is like a resilience journey, especially when there's conflict or two people have different perspectives, you know?
Yeah.
It's like identifying what that medium is in between is what allows the conversation to shift to a space where you're able to come to an agreement. And I think one of the complaints that I hear a lot from a lot of men is like, oh, I don't want to talk for hours. It's like, that's because you haven't learned how to have, and on both sides, learned how to communicate with your partner in a way that acknowledges their experience and their perspective. And I think also trust is a part of that too. Trusting that if I say to you, I'm fine, I know it looks like I'm panicked and I'm fine, let's focus on this, that you're going to trust me despite my external experience, and that I'm going to trust you when you say I am a little panicked, and you trusting that your word is what you're actually experiencing. So I think that that's that other part of it too. And, you know, I just think with relationships, it really gives you an opportunity to look at a mirror to the areas that we don't have language for things, you know? And yeah, I don't know. I think that that's another ingredient in just learning how to be resilient in life is like learning how to communicate. Communicate with yourself. Like you were saying in the beginning, like, I needed to learn these things about myself. I thought that I was pushing through, but really I was packing away. And when you talked about the things that you experienced, when you were able to work through the things that when you started to unpack those things and you brought language into it, that's when it became something that was no longer a guard. And the same thing in a relationship as well. And so I think another ingredient in resilience is like learning to use language, like our words. Ooh, our words.
Because people don't realize that, like, you can say the right thing at the wrong time and destroy someone. You can say the wrong thing at the right time and destroy someone. And you can. It's communication. It's how you say things and how you take things.
For sure.
Because a lot of times, and to speak to that relationship piece and the conversation we had, Felicia and I, about me not reacting the same way, it's like I may not find something as dire or as urgent, but that doesn't mean I don't see that you find it urgent. You know what I mean? I think when we talk in our relationships, men typically see our women panic and we want to make sure she's okay. We want to fix it. You don't always need us to fix the thing.
Nope.
Sometimes we hear it, and in a man's mind, you said it once, I heard it, I understand it. But a lot of times we'll have a woman that'll say, okay, I'm going to say it again a different way. That's when those conversations get long. You said the same thing to me 6 different ways, but it's the same thing at the base. So I got it the first time, and now I'm ready to shut the conversation down because I hear the same thing over and over again. I get you want to reiterate, but I understood. And it just that becomes an argument, or you speak to be listened to, and instead of communicating, you're talking at. And we now are defensive, and it makes it a messy situation. But yeah, like you said, it is a lot of learning to communicate, and that comes from learning to accept communication and decipher it, listening with logic and not just emotion, and also for men speaking to emotion with logic. It's a balance.
So 2 things before we wrap up this conversation. The first one is if you could say that there's one thing that's made your journey like significantly different in how you experience being a resilient person, what would it be?
One thing that's made my journey significantly different. is acknowledging that it's not different. To know that I am not unique in this experience and that this is just a human experience and all humans experience it at some point and in some way, shape, or form lets me not feel so downtrodden and so beaten and broken by it. It lets me feel like I'm comfortable enough to know that there's somebody else dealing with the same thing. I can get perspectives now and being willing to accept those.
Awesome. And then you know what we do at the end of every single show. Be encouraged. That's your camera.
Be encouraged to be you. Despite it all, the world is going to be the world. It's going to move with or without you. Be encouraged to be the best version of you for yourself first, and then just give that to whoever you feel deserves it or needs it. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't know the world doesn't know you. Exist in it and flow in it.